Hey Sue, I'm back. Oops. Oh, there's the yarn I want. So this is getting started with our pattern. So here's the printed pattern. So you'll have this, and it's got all the instructions written on it. It's written like a very standard pattern. It starts with what materials you need. They recommend a yarn. If you use a different yarn, you know the drill. You use the right size hook that goes with your yarn. They recommend the tools, tells you how big the piece is. Then they explain, I know you can't read it on the screen, but you're holding it, so I don't feel bad about that. It explains what all the abbreviations mean. Those are pretty standard, and they're almost always the same, but everyone always includes them on the pattern, I think, because as you go from place to place around the world, they could change, and maybe people make some up sometimes. I don't know. And then the instructions, and it's usually a row by row for a flat piece, a square piece. And there's all sorts of notations that we're going to talk about. So first, let's take a look at our finished piece. It's really quite pretty. The way this pattern works, I've never done one quite like it. It alternates single and double crochets, and they come together. It's almost got a little shell-shaped pattern to it. It looks quite fancy, doesn't it? And that's just single and double crochets. But yet you get this little, you can see this little circle almost, or a shell, and it's quite pretty. So because it's a washcloth, I would highly recommend making it out of an all cotton yarn. Now I know that the first yarn you bought had some acrylic in it, and for practice, that's fine. But if you were going to actually make this to keep, I would definitely use a cotton yarn. As usual, I'm working with my Dishy. Sorry, the label's way over there. But Dishy is the name of this yarn, and it's all cotton. And like I said earlier, I have tons of it, so I use it a lot. So I'm actually making these little washcloths for the baby. So they're very cute. As you can see, this one isn't quite finished. I haven't worked my tails in yet. That's for a future lesson, so I've saved it for you. But anyway, that's just a few basics. So now let's talk through how to read a pattern. So again, you've got this printed in front of you. Yeah, that's not going to work. All right, so as we go through the top, it tells you the materials. So it tells me what size hook, what type yarn I want. It tells me how much yarn I'm going to use. It says 65 yards. Yarn is measured in two different ways, and they're usually both on any package of yarn that you buy. It'll give you yardage and it'll give you weight. Some patterns tell you how many yards of yarn you'll use. Some patterns tell you how many grams or ounces of yarn you'll use. Obviously, they're both subject to the fact that you may use a larger or a smaller hook. So consider them estimates. For every crochet project, you will need yarn. You will need the appropriate hook. You will need a nice little pair of scissors, and you will need a tapestry needle. Hold on, I'm reaching off screen. This is my little bag of tricks for knitting and crocheting. And my tapestry needles, oh, they've dumped. Well, they're in here, but they've dumped. This is one down in the bottom. It's really huge. You can buy a little set of them, and they come in all different sizes. And yeah, there's more in that bag, but they dumped out. Anyway, this is what you'll use to weave these ends back into your piece to finish it off. So you will always need a tapestry needle, a pair of scissors, a hook, and yarn. So that's to get started. Now let's talk through these abbreviations. So we're going to do a chain, and that is always abbreviated as CH. That's really bad, isn't it? Yeah, that's not going to work. Sorry. Chain, always abbreviated as CH. Single crochet is SC. They refer to the word stitches frequently, and that's an ST or STS if it's multiples. Double crochet is DC. Now, the tricky part is the asterisk. An asterisk is used, they'll write along, say double crochet, single crochet, double crochet, single crochet, and if they put that in asterisks, and then say the word repeat so-and-so times, repeat 5 times, or repeat to the end, or repeat until 2 stitches remaining, that means repeat everything inside the stars. So if you look at row 3 and row 4 of the pattern that you've got, it says CH1, so that's chain 1, then turn your work. So SC, single crochet, into each of the first 2 STS, the first 2 stitches, and then we have our asterisk. After the asterisk, it says single crochet in the next stitch, double crochet in the following stitch, then repeat from star. So that means you're going to repeat single crochet in the next stitch, double crochet in the following stitch, until there are only 3 stitches remaining, and then single crochet SC into the last 3 stitches. So again, it's written so strangely. Crochet patterns are just kind of challenging to read, but once you start doing them, they just repeat and repeat and repeat, like this one, and it becomes easier to deal with. But the asterisk gives you that set of stitches that you're going to repeat for as many times as it says to, and it's really quite typical for a pattern to not give you the number of times, but to say repeat until there's only 2 stitches or only 3 stitches or whatever remaining. And that's actually a little easier because then you don't have to count. You just have to go until there's only 3 stitches remaining, and then you know you're done. So that is a little bit about reading a pattern. Well, let's just continue through this one. So first you're going to start with a slip knot and chain, and then you're going to do a first row and a second row that are unique. Those are just single crochets. Frequently, as you see on row 1, the pattern will tell you how many stitches your final row is, because that can change. You started with a chain of 26, but then you use that last chain as your let my next stitches stand up tall stitch, so you skip it, and that means it comes up and becomes part of the second row. So then your final piece is 25 stitches wide. So I've indicated 25 stitches for you. And then the second row is just chaining again, or excuse me, single crocheting again. The third and fourth row are your pattern, and you're just going to repeat those as you see in the next instruction. Rows 5 to 29, repeat rows 3 and 4 12 times, then end with a row 3 because that's the 29th row of the piece. And then the last 2 rows, just like the first 2 rows, are single crochets all the way across, and then you tie your yarn off and weave in the ends. So we'll get started.